It's April 29th, 2021. This is Roqe. He is a young Iranian-Canadian entrepreneur who came up with a simple idea during COVID quarantine to explore his lifelong love of cuisine. Now, Piaz Miaz has become a popular online presence, sharing cooking tips, innovative recipes, and Persian culture. Piaz Miaz joins us. But first, she is an Iranian-American actress with a remarkable resume on stage and screen, from her Broadway debut opposite Robin Williams to The Good Doctor 24 and Emily Owens MD. Necar Zadegan is wrapping a successful few seasons as a star on NCIS New Orleans, and she joins us, plus another edition of It's All Persian to us. I'm Jian Gomeshi. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode number 106 of Roqe. Hope you are keeping well wherever you are tuning in from around the world. Salam Dustan Aziz. We are on an ongoing mission to build a new audiovisual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity, coming to you on Spotify, SoundCloud, Instagram, YouTube, iTunes, Castbox, and Telegram. If you'd like to see some visuals with Roqe, switch over to YouTube if you're not doing so right now. And if you like your Roqe descriptions and bulletins in English and Farsi, check us out on Telegram. Hello, the fabulous Kyan.
Hi, Jian.
How are you?
I'm good.
خوبی؟
بله مرسی. شما؟
عالی. عالیم. Necar Zadegan, Kyan, is joining us from Santa Fe in the American South in just a little bit. So I don't know if have you seen. I mean, I know you've seen her because she's been in so many programs. That
I have actually. Yeah.
But did you know before we booked her? Did you know who Necar Zadegan is?
Not the name, but I know the face. I've seen her.
So do you remember the series 24 with Kiefer Sutherland?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I was a big fan. There was a while when it was pretty much the biggest show in the world. This is around 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. And she had a major role on 24. It was in season 8, where she plays the wife of a president from the Middle East, or a place like that, named Dalia Hassan, and she was fabulous. She plays very strong women, sometimes from a Middle Eastern or an Eastern background, a different culture, but she was just remarkable. And she's an American actor who's done work in Persian as well. She's toured, she's been to Iran. Wow. I'm very much looking forward to Necar Zadegan coming up on the show, the star of NCIS. By the way, it is Necar, not Negar. I'm going to ask her about that. I'm not saying it wrong. Also, Piaz Miaz. So Piaz Miaz was at a low point in his life a couple of years ago, experiencing depression. A spontaneous trip to Iran, he says, was the beginning of changes in his life, including intermittent fasting. That was another one of the changes. Now he's created this brand around cooking and Persian cuisine that has very quickly become a tangible success. He'll join us from Vancouver later on the show. Piaz Miaz, I'm looking at his real name is Masoud. Looking forward to having Masoud John on our show. Kyan Jun.
Bale.
Thank you.
There's this joke that every time somebody calls me by my full Persian name, Kyan Dokht, my automatic response is Bale. And one of my friends has discovered this, so they'll play with me and be like, Kyan Dokht, I'm a Bale.
Did white people, do English people growing up ever get Kyan wrong? Did they call you Kyan?
Kyan, yes. That was my, every time there was a substitute teacher. Kyan, it's Kyan.
I'm thinking about because Necar. I mean, I'm going to ask her if she anglicized her name or something. But I'm thinking about this for Clubhouse for tomorrow night.
Yeah,
we'll do Clubhouse at 8 p.m. tomorrow. We're going to back to our evening slot on Clubhouse for the Roqe Town Hall. Yeah. I'm thinking about the topic of of discussing the anglicizing or the changing one's name to become to try to fit in somehow. And I mean, this is something that immigrants face in general in Western culture. And you come here. Certainly was the case with me. It was do I keep Jian, Jian? When I was a kid, nobody knew how to say that. It was horrible. Some people change their name entirely, just become like Fred.
Understandable.
Or something.
Yeah. Well, there's been studies done that every time employer gets a resume with a long, oddly a name they haven't seen, basically they usually disregard those.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case anymore.
And have you noticed, like, sometimes you call an Uber and it'll be like Mark, and you look at the picture and you're like, well, I don't know if this guy's Mark. I think this guy's Merdad, but it says Mark.
Exactly. Yeah.
So did you ever want to change Kyan?
It was
Kyan's too easy.
It's easy enough, but I tell you, my name Kyan Docht always like every time I go to the airport. Not the case anymore because there's nowhere to go. Whenever the person looking at my passport looks at them, my face doesn't match my name somehow because they're like Kyan Docht. Like, what kind of name is that?
Well, Docht is challenging.
Yeah.
The throwing in the is not easy for the white people.
So that bothered me for a lot of my life. I was like, guys, like to my parents, I was born in America. Couldn't you guys pick an easier name?
Maybe you should have named yourself Iowa. Is that where it was? Idaho? Where were you born?
Des Moines, Iowa.
Yes. You know what's a good name for if you want to exist in English culture, but you're from Iran?
What's that?
Shaya.
That's a good name.
I think Shaya is a good name.
I love that name.
No one gets Shaya wrong, right?
No, but people say Shia.
Well, that's because you spell it.
That's because you're Muslim. You're Islamic. You're like a mullah. The way you carry on. Yeah.
Actually, I have a question. Which one is more difficult, or Qe? For
actually, Qe probably.
Really?
Yeah. No one can say Qomeshi. They say Gomeshi. Yeah. But thank you for that question, Shaya. Everything was going so well, and
It's a good question.
Can you ask some of these questions off the air, maybe?
But I have an interesting story I will tell on Clubhouse tomorrow.
You know who's great on Clubhouse? Actually,
great?
I've decided Shaya.
He is.
Isn't he good?
He's
because
like a poet.
we have these Roqe town halls, and there's all these like big name people and stuff that I'm always going to. Oh, let me go to this person now.
Yeah.
They've got 100 million followers.
Yeah.
And then and Shaya just sits there quietly, and then about an hour in, so I'll be okay, Shaya. I was thinking, and then he says something so profound. Yeah, it's the best. It's the best.
Thank you.
And then there's Reza also on Clubhouse. Actually, Reza is also an easy name, I think. That's probably the easiest. Yeah. No one gets Reza wrong.
No, they don't get it wrong. They mispronounce it sometimes. Reza, but it's for the most part they get it right.
Yeah,
Italians get it right.
Italians.
Easy, yeah. It's Reza. Yeah, they pronounce it that way. But
that sounds right. They're enjoying saying it as they say it.
Jian's pretty easy too.
No, Jian is not easy. No. It's just because you know it now. No. Growing up, I mean, I've said this before, but I mean, people would just look at the name and the first day of school, the teachers. I mean, it's forget gender. They wouldn't know what species it is. I mean, they'd be like, "What is this?
Armadillo?
Is this what kind of what is this? Is it kind of an alien?" Well, it's Yan or Jian, or I mean, it was just, and then there is actually a Chinese name that is Jian, and so oftentimes now in very multi-ethnic, multiracial places, urban places, stuff, people will think that it's an Asian person, and then they'll look at me and kind of go, "Why aren't you Chinese?" But yeah, I mean, it's one of the nice things about getting well known as I built my sort of career on the radio and television stuff was that people started to know how to say Jian, because it was a disaster for all of this is becoming easier living in a place like Toronto. Of course, it's so multicultural and that people grow a facility to say these names. I don't think in Toronto nobody's going to say Reza, right? They really get it. But that it wasn't always the case even in this city.
But
this is a very new
there's
thing.
also more Persians that are visible in Hollywood and tech and everything, all aspects of life.
Yes.
So I think that helps too.
Kyan docht. Yes.
Merci. Bale.
Speaking of Persians who have become successful, our last episode, number 105 on Monday, Bahman Gobadi, the great filmmaker, the Kurdish Iranian filmmaker, it has already become, on Instagram, on Spotify, one of our most successful episodes to date in terms of streams in just 3 days. Wow. This episode really connected with folks, and I'm honored again that Bahman, it was a rare interview. It was mostly in Persian. If you haven't heard it yet, head over on whatever platform you're listening to us to listen to episode 105 after this one, of course. But he was very open. He said, I wonder if that's part of what's going on. It's being shared. I mean, I like to think the show is growing in general anyway, but it's an episode and an interview that seems to have really resonated.
There's just not that many interviews with him, and especially in English, so I think that's a major factor in it.
I don't think there is any interviews that digs this deep into like his background and his life story. Every interview that is done is like press conferences about
yes,
film.
it's true.
Right.
That's true.
It's
It
all
is.
about, like, a
it is a
project.
revelation, perhaps, for a Bahman Gobadi, or as I like to call him, Barry Gobadi, just to make it easier for the North Americans. No, I don't call him that.
Respect to him for not changing his name.
Okay, so Clubhouse tomorrow night. Oh, I was going to say, if you do like what you hear on Roqe, our last episode, or Faraz Aslani, or Kambiz Hosseini, or Farzana Milani, or whatever you've been hearing on Roqe, and if you become a regular listener, we really would appreciate it if you become a patron. One of the ways we're trying to keep this thing alive is through crowdfunding rather than doing lots of ads and commercials on our program, and that means folks who are listeners becoming patrons. So if you go to roqemedia.com and just go to the support us button, Shaya, what do? You press support us?
Then you can support us with $5 or $10. You become the best friend or
That's right.
Yeah.
And Shaya has become a patron for $5 a month. Now I need someone to become a patron so I can give Shaya $5 because he's a patron. So now I feel bad, you know. So it's a monthly. It's $5 or $10, and you get our newsletter. You get some gifts, you get things like that. And you can also make bigger donations. But roqemedia.com to become a patron of Roqe. Go to the support us button. My day started. I had a rocky start to the day.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, my lovable French bulldog.
Yes.
Oogie.
What did he do?
It's an Oogie story.
What did he do?
Oogie, Oogie went to the bathroom on a very manicured neighbor's lawn.
Oh, no.
And the neighbor was there, saw me, was shaking her head. And the worst part is I always go out with bags to pick up Oogie's expressions, you know. But I had already used the bag earlier, and I didn't have a bag. And I tried explaining that to the neighbor, but I could tell that it just sounded like a fake story. They were kind of shaking their head, and now, so, you know, now anytime anyone sees any, dog's expression anywhere in the community, they're going to think, oh, that's Gomeshi's dog. He walks around without a bag, right? So I don't know, and I kind of got mad at Oogie, but...
you should have picked it up with your hands. Why would you just...
I'd
rather that than the shame.
I thought I would... I tried to explain it. Yeah, it was terrible. I walked away with my head down, and then I noticed Oogie's head was down as well. And he kind of, got the idea that he'd done something wrong.
He was sad today. I feel that.
You thought you could... That's his face, though.
No.
He's a French bulldog. It always looks...
No, but this time he lay in the center of your room, and it was very sad.
Yeah, he's melancholy. He's thinking about difficult times earlier in the day. Yeah.
His face always reminds me of somebody who listened to Dariush. Very sad and deep.
Well, he does like Dariush. He takes to it. Yeah, he takes to it. He kind of settles in when you play that music, and he's back at home. Yeah. All right, now we've got an edition of It's All Persian to Us coming up today.
Yeah.
Is it, can you give us, actually, I kind of have a sense of what it is, because you told me.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Ta'aruf. Well, I know I should have told the guy. Sorry. Because it's they would have got it.
I was gonna say it's something very exclusive to Persian culture.
That is really there's no question we invented that.
These things don't happen by accident. There's like thousands of years of culture that was built into us.
I thought it started with my mom and my aunt debating about who's going to do the dishes. No, me. Well, that's great. We'll get to that. It's All Persian to Us with Kyan coming up. Piaz Miaz in a little over an hour joining us. But first, let's get to our first guest today. She is an Iranian-American actor with an outstanding career on stage and screen. Necar Zadegan was born in Heidelberg, Germany, raised in Northern California. She studied theater and dance on a performance scholarship at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and graduated in English literature. She's also studied at the Sorbonne in Paris. Necar made her Broadway debut with the role of the leper in the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-nominated Bengal tiger at the Baghdad Zoo opposite Robin Williams. She has worked at some of the world's most prestigious theaters, and she's toured internationally with the Persian language production of Satellite with Love. Her film credits include Unthinkable alongside Samuel L. Jackson, Judd Apatow's You Don't Mess with the Zohan, and the independent film Elena Undone. Necar's television credits include Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, The Good Doctor, 24, Emily Owens, MD, Masters of Sex, Here and Now, alongside Tim Robbins and Holly Hunter, and she has most recently been starring as Special Agent Hannah Khoury on NCIS New Orleans. She is prolific and impressive, and right now, Necar Zadegan joins me from Santa Fe today. Hello.
Hi. You said that very well. Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you for approving of the way I said that. I appreciate it. What a pleasure it is to have you on this program. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I guess the breaking news is that you just finished shooting your final scenes and final episodes for NCIS New Orleans, a show that has been a big part of your life in recent years. The final episode airs on May 23rd. How are you dealing with that coming to an end?
Yeah, you're right. It has been a big part of my life for the past 3 years. I joined the show 3 years ago, and I'm just really grateful. I'm really grateful that I have a job that allows me to go someplace else and really live there and experience that life. New Orleans is a city that I didn't know, and I really got to know it really well because it was a show that's 24 episodes, and they don't do really 24 episodes anymore. When you do 24 episodes, it's over the course of 9 months. So that's really different than when you do like a limited series or a movie. You go for 30 days, it's like a big party, But when you go someplace for 9 months and you do a show for a few years, you really get to know the town, and you really get to know your set and the people that you work with in a really different way. And so I'm just really grateful about it. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time on it. It was a really cool character to get to play. I was like a cowboy. It's classic.
You kicked
American
ass.
cowboy.
You literally kicked ass.
Yeah, and it was fun. And I'm just so grateful that we got to do it during this past year during, the COVID lockdowns. We were given that opportunity to continue working. And now that things are opening up, we're able to say goodbye to the show in a kind of really easy way, and everybody's going to be available to do new things at a time when things are opening. So I'm grateful.
Okay, so that was the very professional answer.
But it's an absolute fact.
Okay. But how are you I always think the life of an actor, even a successful one like yourself, is such a hustle. Unless you're an icon that can just pick any role you want, you're always hustling for the next gig. And I've got to think that having a regular role in a big series, a franchise, NCIS, it must have been kind of a safety net. Is it hard from that standpoint, strictly as a careerist, to see this end?
No, not for me. But it is all those things that you mentioned. You just never know, and I think when you jump into something, and it's a big deal to leave your life. I have some friends who have kids that won't take a job that's not in LA or New York or something, because the kids are in, school and, what have you. Some people move their families around and stuff like that. I'm not in that position. And the idea of going someplace else to take a job is exciting to me, depending on where it is. I mean, people take jobs for different reasons, and sometimes the location might, play a factor in that stuff. So it is a big deal to do that. So the idea of it closing also kind of gives you your life back, and maybe gives you another opportunity. After a while, not just in this business, but in your life, you recognize that every opportunity or chance or event, whether it's a closed door or an open door, is actually good,
And also that everything ends. Nothing lasts forever. And so a change can be a good thing. Let me start. By the way, I should clear this up before we get too far into the interview. And I'm sorry, because I know you deal with this sometimes when you've done other interviews, either in Farsi or with Persian media. Your name is Necar, not Negar.
Necar, yeah. Well, my parents, my mother loved the name Negar. And I was born in Germany along the Neckar-Westheim river that runs through Heidelberg. And, it was just kind of a very interesting similarity. And so I was called Necar.
Yes.
For that reason. So I might be the only one, but Negar is a beautiful name, and many people in my family call me Negar. Persian people always call me Negar, and I love to be called Negar. But yes, my name is Necar.
Well, I'm basically doing this entirely out of self-interest, because I fear that people listening think I'm saying your name incorrectly, and they're going to write in and go, "Baby in Farsi balad nisti to." It's Negar, I once interviewed. There's a band from the '60s called the Kinks. I don't know if you remember the Kinks, but the lead singer. Lola and Girl, You Really Got Me Going and all that. And the lead singer, his last name it looks like Ray Davies, and his brother Dave Davies, but it's actually said Davis. So when I was about to do the interview, and I said, correct me, like how do you actually, and he said, no, it's Ray Davis, So throughout the interview, I'm saying Ray Davis. And then I get an avalanche of mail from people going, you interviewed this guy, you don't know how to say his name, because people always thought it was Ray Davies. So I'm traumatized by that. And I'm thinking people are going to think this is Negar. And they're saying, why do you keep saying Necar? So thank you for that indulgent moment and for helping.
I respond to a lot of names. You can imagine, I'm sure growing up in the States with a name that is foreign, you end up responding. Like anytime I call a cab, they always come to pick up Nicole. And I just get in.
Me too. Sometimes I don't correct.
And it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, but actually, that's a good segue, because when I was thinking about this interview, I was thinking it's really hard to know where to start with you. I called you prolific in the introduction. That really applies to you. There's so much that you've done that I would want to talk to you about. I would just do an interview about your character Dalia Hassan on 24, because I was an addict of that series. But let me start with a few minutes into the interview, your background. You were born in Germany. Why did your parents move to America?
My folks already lived in the U.S. My mother grew up here in California, Northern California. And then my father came to Los Angeles to pursue his education, his higher education, with the intention of going back to Iran. I think anytime you are educated in a foreign country, it's exciting for the country of your origin, to come back to. And that was their plan. They met here and they got married. And then my father got a job in Germany. He's an engineer, and he got this very prolific job in Germany. And they went there at the time the revolution was happening.
Right.
At that time. And I don't think anybody had the foresight to know how it was going to end up. But they ended up having 2 daughters during all that craziness. And in the early 80s, when we returned to the United States, I think, over the years, there's been discussions in my family about, what it would have been like had things been different, had they stayed in Europe, had they decided to go back to Iran at the time. I mean, it's interesting. I think I don't really think about it a lot, but from time to time, I think that this was absolutely not supposed to be my life. But it is. So I don't know if it's destiny or if it's fate or
what do you think your life would be if it wasn't this? I
have no idea. I mean, in philosophical reading, that the idea is that everything is just a detour to your path that you will be on anyway, and there's that possibility, right, that I would have been sitting here no matter what in Santa Fe with the Stetson. But I don't know if that's true. I don't think it is. But I mean, had we decided to go to Iran at that time, like with the limitations placed on and the difficulties placed on people, and I don't know that my path would have been the same. Had we stayed in Germany and I would have had a European upbringing, I can't imagine. I don't know.
You are in Santa Fe with a Stetson on right now, and a perfect American accent, and you've played, these roles in some iconic kind of TV shows and films, and but you're also very Persian. I mean, your Farsi is admirable. You've done tours in Persian. You have been all in Persian media. You seem to be very comfortable in that as well. How Iranian were you brought up, despite the fact that your parents were had been living in the States and Germany?
Yeah, well, very much. I mean, we were brought up very, very close to our heritage because both my parents are Persian. Because my grandmother lived with us, and we were very close to family. We also had the house that everybody would come through. At that time, there was, a lot of people immigrating, and so we were the ones that were here, and so everybody would kind of come through our house. It was just, there was always, everything was very Irani at home. It was also very American. My mom, especially growing up here, she didn't listen to. She's first generation, so that's its own thing too. She didn't listen to Iranian music and stuff like that, but my dad did. And anytime we had people over, it was very Iranian, right? Dancing till 4 a.m, drinking tea endlessly. And so, yeah, I had a very, very beautiful childhood, and we grew up very close to the culture. And I'm grateful for that.
And were you too young, I'm guessing, to really feel or be impacted by the anti-Iranian sentiment that would have happened in the States following the revolution, following the hostage crisis in the early 80s into the mid 80s? Did that wash over you because you were just too young a kid?
Yes, I was too young for sure on one respect, but I was very aware of it as well. It was not as directed towards me, but I witnessed it all the time. And I think it's very lucky to be raised around multiple generations and around multiple cultural backgrounds. I think there's the idea that we do in America, that people from all walks of life, but we really did because our family became so international. People lived in different countries and stuff like that. And so as a small child, when you have that experience, you're very sophisticated about what you're speaking of. I always felt like we were outside. I didn't know how much until kind of now, looking back. But I always felt that. I always felt like an outsider. And yes, we witnessed that anti-Iranian sentiment. I dislike it completely. I dislike any kind of Iranian bashing, whether it comes from non-Iranians, and even more when it comes from Iranians. I just don't like it. I disagree. Because I think it's not helpful.
You really are international, and you speak Persian, you speak English, you speak French, you speak German. I don't know why do you speak German? You left when you were 2. That's impressive.
Yes, that's true. But
surely it wasn't in the first 2 years you learned German.
I was really advanced 2-year-old. Right. No, my mother thought it was very important for us to learn the language of the country of our birth. So that's the language I studied growing up. And then because of my work, I traveled to Germany a lot with different projects. And so my German was just able to get better and very good.
But since you are so international, if you felt like an outsider or in the States, where were you an insider?
I never really had that feeling. I mean, it's not like I walk around feeling like an outsider here all the time, but there's othering happened a lot. Explaining who you are and where you come from and stuff is something that becomes tedious only for yourself. You start to begin to think that, oh, I must be, this must be really boring to listen to. And then you're like, oh no, I'm just bored because the 25th time I've explained it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I do remember landing in Iran the first time I went there and looking around and suddenly feeling like, oh, this is where I'm from. You know that story about the ugly duckling and the swan, and finally comes around the ducks and it's like, oh, I'm a duck.
When was that? When was the first time you went to Iran?
When I graduated from high school, I took kind of a gap year when I traveled abroad and I studied abroad. And my grandmother was in Iran at the time, visiting family and building schools for girls along the Caspian Sea. And so I went to join her, and it was a really cool experience just because of her philanthropic work as well. But going to Iran as a tourist, but also as an insider, an inside tourist, it's a really special opportunity, because Iran is a very special country. It's singular in the entire world. It's not like any other country in the Middle East. It's very beautiful and very vast, and the people are, I think, probably surprising more for non-Iranians to witness that kind of hospitality and culture and sophistication. But for me, knowing that the people were going to be like that and being able to speak Farsi, it was really a wonderful opportunity to travel. And also the kind of dichotomies that exist in Iran were just very eye-opening. And to go to a country like that at that time in one's life is very enlightening, and it really opened my mind a lot.
If I can just meditate on that, indulge you and meditate on that notion for a second, because it is part of what we often talk about on the show in terms of the identity piece, of the connective tissue of us being Iranian. This is interesting. You're a kid who who's born in Germany, grows up in the States, studies in California and then in France, goes to Iran and goes, oh, I feel like I've come home. I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it didn't take too long for me to also feel like, okay,
it's not that much of a
really ain't me.
Did you speak Farsi in the house growing up?
With my grandmother, not with my parents, but with my grandmother. Yeah.
It's sort of an obvious question. You forgive me, but would you say that because you have such an interesting, as we segue into talking about your acting career, you really are diverse in terms of the roles you've played, and quite deliciously so. Like, it's like I look at your resume and go, wow, this is such already, I mean, you're young, but this body of work is so interesting in the diversity of it. Do you think your international upbringing and identification in these different languages and these different places have fed you as an artist, as an actor, in terms of facilitating all that diversity of roles?
I'm sure, but it's also what I wanted. It's also the way that I saw myself. It's also the way that I knew how to compete. So those were helpful in kind of creating the career path that I wanted, and also what it, was doled out to me. You, I think, become a product of your opportunities more than anything else.
The way that I wanted to compete. Let me come back to that. That's interesting. But first, you've talked about the fact that your parents were actually, this is counterintuitive in some cases for a Persian family, but were very supportive of you going into the arts. Was it clear that you were destined to be on stage and screen?
They knew that I wanted to. I always wanted to since I was small. It was the thing that I gravitated towards very much. It was the thing that I was very liberal artsy, even as a child, and I was always very unafraid of being in the center of attention or anything. Like I was, I didn't have stage fright or anything like that. And I found it very interesting. They were just really supportive of anything we wanted to do. They wanted us to do what we were good at and do what, kind of got us going. They disallowed us from veering extremely from, traditional academic paths. Mm-hmm. And they weren't supportive of necessarily, like dropping out of school and joining the circus.
Right.
There was only two things we weren't allowed to do. We could do anything we wanted, but we weren't allowed to cheerlead and we weren't allowed to model. Anything else we could do.
What? Wow, those were they carved those two things out, huh?
Yeah, those are the only two things we weren't allowed to do.
And what's wrong with modeling? I mean,
well, I think that there's for a young girl, I think they felt that they didn't want us to, held up as an object of a sexualization. And also, photographers are pretty sleazy across the board, and I think they didn't want us to be victims of that scenario. They did their best to protect us from those aspects, and the rest was up to us.
You do your due diligence. You get the degree in literature, but it impresses me how young you got started. I mean, we've had people on the show, actually, actors and actresses on the show who, especially with a Persian background, talk about how they had to do all this university, and then they had to there's this like decade-long process of negotiating with the parents to, I want to go and do pilot season and but when you got to start at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, you must have been a teenager, right? Still.
Yeah, I was in high school. Mm-hmm.
Now, I have to ask you about that because I have some experience with the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I played there many times.
I know.
It is just, especially in the 1990s. You were there in the late 90s, I think. And it was this magical, for folks who don't know, there's the Edinburgh Festival, which is an official theater festival. But then the Fringe Festival was this thing. I mean, it is this thing, but I don't know what it's quite where it's at right now. But it was this magical thing in the late 90s of a diversity of art, thousands of performances of all different kinds happening in this beautiful town in Edinburgh in Scotland. Mm-hmm. And so tell me about that time for you and what you learned from getting your start there.
Oh, it was so cool. What a wonderful experience. I know, just yourself having been there too, it's just so cool. There's so many people, so many artists from so many different places. And it was just, and remember, you're doing a few, we were doing 2 plays in tandem, but people are there doing 6 or 7 shows in tandem. It's just so cool. And you're staying, it's like a student life, it's very academic, and it's just a celebration of art, and people are wild, and the nights are late, and it's kind of mature, but also childlike. And, in Edinburgh, which is very like fairies and leprechauns, and you know what I mean? And Loch Ness Monster. And
what were you doing? What were you playing in?
So I was doing 2 shows in tandem. One was Beauty and the Beast, and one was Piaz, which is like this folkloric Beauty and the Beast.
Was it had to be something of a coming of age, huh? You're this Iranian girl who's in Scotland at the age of 18 performing at this Fringe Festival. I mean, the Fringe was, you would do your gig and then you would finish and run to go see some other, comedy performance or wild band playing or whatever, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was a coming of age. It was like, it was the first time that I kind of had that experience of freedom too, real freedom on my own. I think it was the first time I got drunk at the Roxborough Hotel, I remember, on White Russians, because it's the only drink I knew. We sat around at the Roxborough pub and had some very English experience there. It was fun.
So all of this is kind of a setup, because just a few years later, you make your Broadway debut. And I mean, it's quite spectacular. You make your Broadway debut with Robin Williams. Tell me what that meant to you.
Somehow, it just happened. It was really wonderful to gain Robin because the role had been written for him. And what was really cool was, yes, it was Robin's Broadway debut. So it was a very big deal. Everybody came to see the show. The politicians came, all the actors, everybody came, But what was more exciting than that was that we were so prepared for the show. Our rehearsals weren't us rehearsing. Our rehearsals were Robin rehearsing and getting into the flow with us. And what was so cool was that Robin's process was vocal, and so it was like watching this masterclass unfold before us. That was really our rehearsals, was watching Robin kind of get to know the character and stuff. And he was very serious and very much one of us. And he wasn't really Robin until we had press day. And then he turned on. And then I remembered, oh yeah, we have Robin Williams in the show.
When you say it was a masterclass watching him, can you put into words something that what did you learn from Robin Williams?
Well, because his process was very vocal, and sometimes, you're working with an actor and they're processing it, but you're not aware of how they're processing it, because they're just processing it. But his process was just very vocal. They'd give him a note and be like, oh, okay, so, oh yeah, I'm the tiger. I'm the biggest cat in the jungle. So he'd be talking it out.
Oh, that's what you mean by vocal. I mean? Yeah, I see. So he was almost narrating how he was learning, how he was taking on the role.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly right.
That's so
he was narrating how
interesting.
he's learning it. I think anytime you witness somebody who's very good at what they do, figuring it out in front of you, it's a masterclass. I love that about sports. That's why I love sports so much. And I think that watching people play at the top of their game is exciting. Watching anybody do anything at the top of their game is exciting. Even, the OJ trial was exciting for that reason. You know what I mean? You're watching these lawyers just duke it out. So he was very, it was just him in this role he carved. You got to see it.
Necar, it's so interesting that you've been successful on stage and screen. I mean, I don't know if this is like an old school idea I have, but I feel like it used to be that actors would generally stay in their lane. They'd be a stage actor or they'd be a film actor. There was a few crossovers, but I think of someone like Bernadette Peters. She's always been, known for her stage work. And then there's somebody that you've only ever seen on TV. And you've somehow done both throughout your career. Is it a different toolbox to perform in a play versus a TV show or a film? One would think it is. How different is it for you, and how do you learn to navigate those two worlds?
Well, I'm very comfortable with it now in both worlds. I don't know. I think it's different for everybody. I heard Alan Alda say once that the only thing he does different when he does a play is he talks louder. And I think, maybe that's a simplification of it. It kind of, it's kind of the same thing, but there are different things about theater that you don't get to do with the camera. First of all, the performance is all your own. The director at a certain point will leave, and then it belongs to you and the actors. And that control is desirable, I think. Then with film and television, since you don't have that, the trust and also freedom of that, like a lot of times I do watch the things that I'm in, but sometimes I don't, especially if it's a series and it's been going on. I'm like, oh, did you watch the show last night? No, I didn't. I watched the 300 other episodes, but I missed the one last night. You know what I mean? Because once I'm done shooting it, I'm done. My job is done. And then I watch it for fun, but it's often not what I did, exactly. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's cooler with the music and the editing. It's just awesome. If you're doing green screen, for example, you have no idea what it's going to look like, Then there's things like just the camera. The camera, while it can be intimidating, I think, sometimes for theater actors when you first start, it's actually a really helpful asset because it's like that one person in the audience that's always there and you can just play to them the entire time. So it's very intimate. A raise of an eyebrow can be meaningless in theater, but it's very effective on camera. So I do tend to want to play bigger. And when you say bigger or smaller, I think that can be confusing for a young actor that's not certain what those things mean, because it doesn't mean so much bigger or so much louder or overplaying at all. It just means that your house is bigger, and instead of a raise of an eyebrow, maybe you get a whole turn of the head,
right.
and using your body and everything. Right. These are things you don't get to do all the time in film and television, but you learn to have more freedom actually with the camera than I think you originally think when you're starting.
And as Alan Alda says, you don't have to talk as loud.
Yes. Yeah.
When I was young, I did a bunch of musical theater, and that musical theater is like, it's huge, it's big, everything has to be really big. And Adam McGoyan, strangely enough, the Canadian director, had spotted me and said, and brought me in for an audition, on-camera audition, and and it was just so horrible when I think about it, because I did this audition and I was like musical theater guy, and he kept on, and I didn't know Adam McGoyan at the time. I mean, he hadn't become the sort of very, very famous Canadian director that he is now. But he's known for his kind of minimalist, like play everything. And he kept on going, could just a little bit less, just smaller, And I'd be like delivering the lines like I'm in, some Broadway musical. It was just a disaster. So I know that there's something very different that you do when you're on camera than what you do on stage. I was also a busker, which you're yelling to people to, in Edinburgh, come see us, come watch us juggle, right? So it was a disaster.
Oh, you juggle?
No, I don't juggle. I mean, I tried to believe me. I don't. No. But I mean, that's the kind of thing we were doing, back in the day as buskers. Anything to draw a crowd. And you have to be bigger than life. And then you're sitting in front of Adam and going, he's just like going, no, just less, please. So when you talk about control and this back to the versatility that you have, I wonder about, I look at these different roles you're playing, and I wonder about the elements of your own character and personality in the characters you play. Like, for example, your Iranian background. Does that go into how you prepare for a gig or identify with your characters?
It depends. If I feel like I want to give it to the character, if I feel like it's, makes sense for the character, but not all the time. I think every project I come at it differently, sometimes more similarly than others. I think I have a process that I can be very comfortable with, but it's not always necessary. Sometimes acting is easy. Sometimes the stretch is greater, but sometimes it's not so far.
So you played a popular character named Dr. Gina Bandari in the CW medical drama Emily Owens, MD. She's a proven and innovative surgeon, and the story goes that she was given a new last name after the pilot. Did you play a role in choosing the character's last name? Is that something you would do to suggest?
Yeah, it might be, but I didn't suggest it at the time. The showrunners actually asked me if it was okay if they molded the character more to my identity. And I thought it was a great idea, because in our conversations, it wasn't something that was going to kind of predicate the character. It was just to involve my background in it in a matter of representation. And I enjoyed that from a political perspective. And I thought it was a great idea. And they chose the name. And to me, it was funny. To them, it wasn't funny. But Bandari is funny to me because it's a dance.
Right.
So I say the name Gina Bandari with a wink. But no, they were. I appreciated that they wanted to do that. I thought it was really cool. And I was glad they wanted to.
I mentioned earlier that I was an addict of the show 24, and this is where I would have first seen you. You had this major role. Actually, when you played Dalia Hassan on 24, I think it was at the peak of 24. It was when 24 was basically the biggest show in the world. How did you land that role, and what did that mean to your career?
It was a very big show. It was a very big international show. And I landed that role. I've been doing television here and there. I was doing a theatrical project at the time, but I was also, anytime I was back in Los Angeles, I was, trying to get my footing in television. And that role came to me at a time when my agent called and he said, I don't think that this is right for you. I don't think they'll necessarily want you for this, because I was 27 years old at the time. And the role was a woman, a very, kind of much more worldly than I, woman, with a 20-year-old daughter and the first lady of this country and stuff. And so he said, I got you this audition, you read for it, but just, so you can make an impression on these producers, because it's a big deal project and maybe they'll bring you for something else. So I really had the freedom of not really expecting to book the role when I went to read for it. I tried my best to, look right and appropriate. I didn't obviously age myself or anything like that. But what I always recommend to when I speak to young actors, because we talk about this, how should I look for the audition? And I never, ever personally, these things are all personal, but I never try to go in as a character.
Oh, really?
Or caricature. Yeah. I would never go in to read for a doctor in Scrubs or something, because to me, the character is deeper.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just try to not be the opposite of it, So yeah, I went in trying to look, trying to be the sophisticated person that I was trying to execute, and they really, I just did it, the old fashioned way. I went and I auditioned, and they really liked me for it. And they brought me back. And the matter of maturity didn't come into play until they had cast the girl who played my daughter. And then we figured out that we were going to have to build the characters so the age seemed further apart, because we were about the same age at the time.
Right.
Yeah, and so we did, and I was very happy to do it because I'm a character actor. I play a lot of leads, but I'm actually a character actor. And so creating this character of this woman who was accented and much older than I, with a completely different, life, and what it meant for my career was that it was kind of the first opportunity that I'd had at that time to really have a role that was recognized by other people who worked professionally in the industry, other producers, other casting people, and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I mean, it was important. It was a hit show. You're very your character is very powerful in this, and empowered, and it's very memorable. I mean, I as soon as somebody you say Dalia Hassan, I remember, there's a lot of characters on 24, but I remember your character, and so the sort of maybe the juvenile way of thinking of this would be that the day after that series, the phone's ringing off the hook and you can get any gig you want. But I mean, was it sort of like that at all?
In a way, I almost felt like I was being punished for doing a good job. Like everybody after that thought I was this much older woman, accented woman, and so a lot of those kinds of roles were coming my way.
Right.
And I didn't want to make a career of this character. Right. My interest was to play a variety of characters, and also, I wasn't right for those characters. I remember going to an audition, and who was there? First of all, the audition was for this woman of this age, and I got there, and I was like this 27, 28-year-old girl, and everybody there was 60 or pushing 60. All these actresses. I shouldn't have really been at that audition, after a certain night, now I wouldn't go to something that was so wrong for me. I mean, I wouldn't even entertain something like that. But at the time, I really wanted to make an impression, and I was taking chances and trying to get seen and trying to get noticed. I didn't know anybody in the business, and I had to figure out my own way and find a way to get work. And it's hard.
But
it's hard.
Well, let me ask you about it being hard, because I look at your career. And I think you have the best career. I think the career you have is the best. I would choose that over the annoyance of being some, celebrity that's always in Us Weekly or something like that. But you also you're always working. Your roles are great roles. And I'm talking to you, and it's almost deceptive because you seem unflappable. You seem very confident, and I certainly think at the top of the list is your talent. I mean, you are just really good at what you do. That's why you get these gigs. But you've been working regularly in good roles, and I suppose I want to address just how you are a Middle Eastern woman. We so often hear that Hollywood is tough, if not impossible, especially for non-white women getting roles. Your resume would suggest that you get anything. I mean, you've done what you wanted to. Tell me about whether it's been challenging for you and how you've somehow broken that mold of difficulty that non-white women can have.
Yeah, I don't think I was as aware of that when I was younger. I really didn't know. I was just trying to figure out how to get work. That was how I competed, was because that was what I thought I had going for me. And it was also just what I could reach out to. When I had first started working as a young woman in my 20s, young women in their 20s tell a certain story, especially before, now they talk a lot about diversity and women in the industry, and a lot of roles have opened up, I think, with more women and people of diverse backgrounds behind the scenes, and also what the appetite of the audience seems to dictate, seems to be something more interesting than what or fresher, than what has been in the past.
And the writing has changed. It's become
yes. So it gives opportunities for different people. They're still figuring that out, sort of, and everybody wants to get on the right side of this thing. Nobody wants to be canceled. They're so scared of talking about it,
Right.
But as a young woman in my 20s, those roles that go to young women in their 20s were the roles that were coming my way. The sexy girl in the bikini. I can't tell you how many times I auditioned in a bikini, or whatever. I can't even. It's like crazy to some people when you say that. They're like, what? But this is the industry, and
but that surprises me, because I don't. Your resume doesn't have a lot of those kind of roles.
Yeah, well, I didn't book them because you go there because they think you sell a certain thing, but at the end of the day, at that time, the person that was selling that story was someone who was white. The beauty of the High School Musical was a white girl, was a blonde girl.
Right.
The beauty of, and I was always there with those kinds of things. You're there with a few actresses and then just models. These are the auditions you're going to when you're in your 20s. And I didn't even realize how not white I was until this industry makes you even more not white. And I didn't know that. I can tell you that now, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I had to learn. Luckily, I was a character actress, and so I could compete at that level.
But I have to say, you have played immigrant women. You've played non-white characters. But, in comparison with a lot of other actors, especially men, who we always have to have the conversation about how they either did book or tried to avoid but couldn't, roles as terrorists or religious radicals or bad guys. I mean, you look like an Iranian woman, but your characters that you play are nuanced. They're interesting. They're not these caricatures. So I'm trying to figure out the magic sauce. Is that just because you were smart in selecting what you've been able to play, or you got? How do you think?
To some degree, because that is one power you have, is who you choose to work with. And I was really clear about what I wanted to do. I was really certain about my capability, and I conveyed that very easily to the people that I worked with, the people that I hired to work for me, to help garner opportunities for me. And so, I was always looking for what I was looking for. Easily, there were things that I didn't feel like I could give anything to. And so I wouldn't necessarily be interested in reading for those things. But there was a lot of things I did feel like I could give something to. And that's what I wanted to read for.
Before I let you go, just back to this, you're being this international person, this identity.
This international femme fatale. What can I tell you about it?
Yeah. I wonder what you've heard over the years, and even more recently from Middle Eastern people, from Iranian people. I mean, you're interesting because as opposed to someone like Shohreh Ardashlu, who by the roles she's taken, everybody in the Iranian community kind of knows her. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some Iranians who don't even know that you're Iranian, who are watching you on 24 or NCIS and don't even make the connection necessarily. What do you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that I'm Iranian, but I am. And it has been just the virtue of my path to work on the projects that I've worked on. But it's not because I don't want to work on Iranian produced projects or Iranian told stories. In fact, one of the reasons I don't work on a lot of Irano-specific projects in the States is because I find the U.S. perspective of our stories and our lives as very small. And it doesn't turn me on to read a project with a small perspective.
Right.
We are not sitting around talking about being Iranian all day long. and in these stories that through an American lens seems very, very
right.
strange to me. But the Iranian told stories that come out of Iran, for example, don't deal with that. They get to deal with their lives. Europeans do a better job of this as well. Maybe it's because their relationship to their history forces them to understand us and to know us in a different way, whereas we don't have that here in the States. Our history doesn't require us really to know about. It would help, it'd be nice for Americans to have a broader understanding of world history. Maybe they will. Oh, hi, Charlie. Hi. It's okay, Charlie.
Charlie can feel the interview coming to an end. He's like, okay. Yeah. Listen, it is Charlie. It's okay, buddy. Take it easy. Take it easy.
It's okay, Charlie. It's okay, bud. It's okay. They're very sweet, I promise.
Oh no, I have no doubt. All dogs are sweet, ultimately. So I have to thank you. I mean, I really appreciate more than anything. You're on your little epic adventure, following a grueling end to your big series and NCIS, and I appreciate you making the time and there in Santa Fe to do this. It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for this. Take care of yourself. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Necar Zadegan, an Iranian-American actress with an outstanding career on stage and screen. She has just wrapped shooting NCIS New Orleans, where she stars as Special Agent Hannah Khoury. Necar Zadegan joined us from Santa Fe today. Microphone's back on for Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya, the fabulous Kyan. Reza, I was thinking about you as we were finishing off this interview and seeing you across the glass. As an actor yourself and as a person involved in film and TV, she is Necar is. I mean, it's not to say that other actors we haven't had on aren't professional, but you just the sense of confidence from her. Yeah. I just think she should be cast in everything because she's going to be good and she knows she's going to be good,
Yeah, she's got it I don't know, for lack of better words, she's got it together. She's there's a sense of professionalism in her that you just feel like she's done her homework, she can get it done. And you'll be satisfied with the results. I don't know what it is. She projects this persona.
In the beginning, when I was like, do you feel sad about NCIS ending? It's a steady gig, I know it's a hustle being in it. She's like, no, I'll get another job. It's like, okay, this is a successful actor. This is not somebody who's like, I would be gripping onto that series going, oh my God, what's next?
And she really cares about the crafts, like it seems like she's not really like, doesn't care much about the fame and stuff like that. She really cares about the job, and you can tell.
You see, Reza?
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to tell you. Let this be a lesson to you.
Yeah, unlike me, who cares only about fame and glory.
That's right.
I got to learn from her.
Shaya, Kyan, anything you want to say before we get to...
I just wanted to say, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. I've said this before. Growing up, there just was not any Persian actresses or actors or singers or anybody that was really visible to a kid like me growing up Persian. That's why it just wasn't cool.
You're not, you don't consider Egyptian actor Omar Sharif
well, that's
a role model for us.
We can't claim him. He's not Persian. So it's just, I'm so proud to see so many Iranians coming to the limelight and being visible. I was waiting for this day, and it's finally coming. It's kind.
Do you mean this day, or you mean in general?
In general, just we've made it. I think in a way we've made it as a culture.
Well said. Well said.
And I don't want to toot the horn of Roqe, but Varan, if it wasn't for Roqe, I would never know about these people. Really, I really wish Roqe existed when I was a teenager. Then I would have. Maybe
I don't know if Roqe could exist in the same way. I mean, it wouldn't have. Given that it's a show about the diaspora,
right?
Exploring our stories of the diaspora. It was a smaller diaspora,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. And I mean, the fact is
maybe not when you were young. That was only 4 years ago. Aren't you 19? Young
yes,
Kyan?
Yes, I'm 19.
But Kyan is right, because there's I feel like this this phase that we're going through is a phase that a lot of European migrants went through when they migrated to North America. Like, for instance, like Dean Martin, one of the greatest American showman, actor, singer. He was actually Italian. Dino Paul Crocetti, that was his full name, but he had to change his name to Dean Martin and become Americanized as much as humanly possible to fit in, because they weren't as that welcomed if you were
bring that up on Clubhouse tomorrow night.
I know.
We're talking about names. That's a good example. But and I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. One of the reasons I wanted to be Brad Pitt or Robert Redford or whatever when I was a kid is because there weren't Persian role models necessarily in at least in Western media,
Exactly.
And I joke about Omar Sharif, but I remember as a kid, I mean, it came out years before I was born, but watching Dr. Zhivago and even Lawrence of Arabia and seeing this guy and going, wow, and he's the cool guy in both those movies. Like in Dr. Zhivago, Julie Christie loves him, and I'm like, oh, and he's one of us. And meantime, he was Egyptian and they were, they had to, they changed his eyes and did all kinds of things through his face to make him look more Western.
Exactly.
But nevertheless, he was a role model watching some rerun one night of Dr. Zhivago, because there was just a dearth of anything else. And I'm a kid growing up and the revolutions happened, and there's pictures of Khomeini on every night on ABC News, So what do you got to do? So it's true that not only that Roqe exists, but if you're a kid now, a Persian kid, and you're growing up with, you can be growing up in Canada or the States or in England with all of these people, cool DJs and actors and people like Necar.
You have people to look up to now.
Yeah, it's great.
Amazing.
It's great, man. We're going to get to Piaz Miaz in just a few minutes, but it's Thursday, and she's a dear friend, a diaspora blend, a gym workout cat, a bicultural brat, a lovable, smart, funny human, and on a journey to discover what we actually have discovered. Here we go, Batyaw. It's Thursday, and it's all Persian to us with Kyan Nademi. All right, Kyan. Well, we had a nod to this earlier in the show, but we are standing at attention. What is this week's induction into the It's All Persian to Us Museum?
Well, like I've mentioned, this is something that's exclusive to Persian culture. So you guys, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you go to pay for something and the shopkeeper tells you, no, please take it. Your money's no good here. Or perhaps you've witnessed...
In a Persian shop,
In a Persian shop, yes.
Not at the local Best Buy, unfortunately.
Try that there and see what happens, Or perhaps you've witnessed two people spending hours arguing over who should enter the room first.
Yes.
Or maybe you've even...
Me and Shia, we have that debate every day.
Or maybe you've even stayed at a friend's house when they offer to sleep on the floor so you could sleep in their own bed. And when it comes time for you to leave, they insisted, no, please, stay longer, perhaps even forever. If you've experienced any of this, you've been the victim of a very ancient practice, a poetic dance of communication known as taarruf. Yes, this is the Persian art of politeness, a blueprint for courteousness and civility. It's found everywhere in daily Persian culture, from places like the supermarket to the bank and even in the comfort of your own home. I'm sure you guys have experienced a lot of it with your own parents. It's inescapable.
With me and Oogie, in fact. Oogie enters the room. I say, no, you first, please. And then he goes.
Very close.
So it basically underlies all forms of communication in Persian social life. It's used with strangers, friends, and family alike. Taarruf is an unwritten collection of actions and verbal formulas that make up the Persian etiquette. Persians in general are notoriously known to be some of the nicest and most hospitable people in the world, and this is especially the case when it comes to their guests. In my household growing up, for example, we had a special room. It was called the guest room, but it was basically like a guest entertaining room.
Right.
And this room
we had that too. It was called the otal. My mother was like, not a otal. Don't go in the room.
What was in the otal? So it was just honestly like the
furniture,
most, like antiques, like golden antiques. It was like a museum of like everything Persian, basically. And this room was reserved for whenever there's guests over. And if any of us went into the other room, like, get out of there.
Wait. Any guest or like special guests? Like if the aunt comes over, who comes over like every now and again?
Any guest that comes over. Yeah.
Anyone outside of the nuclear family.
Exactly, yeah.
Who must remain suppressed, repressed, and oppressed and unable to go in the room.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally, my sister and I were not allowed in the room unless like an aunt was over and then we can go in the room. You know?
And even special treats would be hidden from us, and they were only reserved for special guests. So me and my brothers were basically peasants compared to these guests who were treated like royalty. You know, I'm still seeing a therapist, by the way. I'm making great progress. Moving on, yes.
And you're saying that's a version of Torof.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'm getting into
we are going to
how
save the room for you.
Yes. So that's what, like, guests were essentially seen as sacred people, basically.
Right.
So this is common in most Persian households. Entertaining guests or mehmoons is sacred, and of course there's a shower of tarofs happening on such events. Well, this didn't all happen by accident, you know. Tarof is an ancient practice with roots as far back as 700 BC, but perhaps even further than that, when the first monotheistic religion was beginning to gain traction in the Persian Empire. Tarof came from Zoroastrianism. We'll get to this on another show, by the way. Well, the three pillars of the sacred religion are good deeds, good thoughts, and good words. Yes, this is the key teaching and virtue of the religion, where its followers, mainly Persians, must always try to use kind words throughout their lives. So, of course, this is something that got built into the foundation of our culture. Good manners, respect, modesty, personal respectability, and humility in the face of others.
Yes.
Well, after practicing this for thousands of years, and being the Persians that we are, we took these to the extreme by telling complete strangers things like no karitam, meaning I'm your slave, or qorbunit beram, meaning I die for you, etc., etc.
That's what it means?
Yeah.
I say qorbunit beram to Rez all the time. So
would you die for him?
I would die for him. But I would die for him, you know?
Exactly. You see how extreme we are? We take everything to the next level, yeah.
Qorbunit beram means I would die for you?
Yeah, I die for you.
I will sacrifice
myself.
Wow.
You see? Yeah, so there's a huge list of these exaggerated Taro phrases us Persian use. So, well, as all the other monotheistic religions of the world can be linked back to our very own Zoroastrianism, so can European etiquette. Yes, it's rumored that the pillar of using good words in daily life, or good manners rather, also spread to Europe from Persia. Well, you might be wondering to yourself, but how come Persian etiquette seems like a little bit too much, dare I say? Yeah. Well, that's because of how Persian language is used. Westerners use language merely as an instrument to get the message across. Persians, however, communicate with flowery, elegance, and highly symbolic patterns of speech. Well, we've only produced the world's most famous poets of all time. Hafez, Rumi, Ferdowsi, Sadi, Khayyam, and the list goes on and on and on. And so, if you find yourself being offered something by a Persian, do the right thing. Be polite and decline 3 times before you accept it. Yeah. This is the art of etiquette known as tarof. But please, I insist, it's all Persian to us.
That was great.
Well delivered, Kyan. And now I have absolutely no qualm with the pretext of this, which is that it's an induction into, as I call it, the museum of It's All Persian to Us, because I believe that Persians would have discovered this or started this, and I see that you've now given us a history of it. I will, however, say this was a particularly chest-beating positive skew of Tarof, when there are negative, some possible negative versions of it. Of it. In fact, it may even at times be considered disingenuous. That things are said that are not. You get into the cab and the cab driver says, "No, please don't give me any money." And then, I mean, were you to take the cab driver up on that, they'd be like, "What are you talking about, buddy? Give me my money!" Right? So, I mean, these things that are said that we don't really mean, I think can also be problematic.
So I think this, like I said, this started thousands of years ago. So it just kind of built into our culture, whereas it became part of our communication where we have to, say these kind words, even though we don't mean them. It's part of the good words aspect.
Yeah, and that can also be a bit dodgy, no? That we say things that we don't mean.
Yeah, well, you know what I don't like? The whole...
I like your explanations.
Yeah. The قابلی ندارم thing I don't like. So when you go to a store, when you go to pay for something, they have to say, oh, it has no worth. Like, take it for free.
That makes sense to me, that it's become part of our communication, but it raises a question for me. Why 3 times? Why do we have to refuse 3 times? What's the significance of that?
It can be, you have to say you're not interested. It's basically showing that you're not greedy. Like it's like basically a competition of self-lowering. You have to keep lowering yourself as a form of respect to the other person.
But when you know that the person doesn't actually think of themselves as lower than you, it's so empty, right?
I mean, that's the part. It has to be genuine, which, like, when saying قابلی نداره, it can sound genuine by saying, oh, like, it's not worth you kind of thing. Like, it's all about the tone you use, I suppose.
There's also like, I mean, I do, in general, I think that it's quite beautiful when, no, خواهش میکنم Shaya, you go first, I think that's very sweet. But then I notice people like Shaya, حسابش داره, he remembers when you have or haven't taught off, and then he'll get back at you, like you have to be careful around these guys.
I'm very Tarofi, but
you are very Tarofi. My mother is the most Tarofi. My mother's family is
really
out of control. Yeah.
You told this story of like her and her ice cream, like where she.
Yeah, because we were talking about this on Clubhouse a few weeks ago, right? I told her, it's a very it's a famous story. When I was growing up, my mom, she had done an exchange. She grew up in Iran, born in Tabriz, then grew up in Tehran, and she did an exchange to the United States. Mm-hmm. This is back a few decades ago, and when she was 18 years old, to Oregon, the state of Oregon, and she was billeting, I guess, with an American family. She stayed with an American family there as a student. And then I think there was an American student that went and stayed with my mom's family in Iran. But while she was with this American family for a few months, one of the first nights that she was there, my mom was a huge fan to this day. I mean, she loves ice cream. Ice cream is one of her favorite things. And one of the first meals that they had, they said, "And Sarah, what would you like some ice cream?" And she said, "Oh no, I couldn't, please." And they went, "Okay," And so for weeks they would bring out ice cream after each meal or whatever, and then say, "Oh, don't give any to Sarah. She doesn't like ice cream," and she wouldn't say anything, So that's when the other party doesn't know the protocol, which is to go, no, you must have some. No, please, I couldn't. No, they were just like, okay, no ice cream for you then. You don't want any. Yeah. All right. Speaking of ice cream, let's get to Piaz Miaz. Thank you, Kyan. Thank you, Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya. Another edition of It's All Persian to Us in the books. Well, it has been quite a year for Masoud Moussaei. The young Iranian-Canadian entrepreneur was at a low point mentally and spiritually before COVID started to hit the world, but after a trip back to Iran, he decided to shake things up and turn his lifelong love of cuisine into something special on the internet. This is how Piaz Miaz was born, now a very popular Instagram channel and a growing brand with the intention of introducing Persian cuisine and culture to as many folks around the world as possible. And right now, Masoud, better known these days as simply Piaz Miaz, joins me from Vancouver today. Hello, sir.
Hi, Jian. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to have you on the program. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for inviting me. The Piaz.
Your Instagram channel and website, it's both entertaining and educational about various Persian dishes and ingredients and styles, but your story is also a particularly inspirational one, and I want to get into that. First, let's situate you for folks who are just discovering you. You're very open about the fact that you have no formal culinary training, but you say you are a chef with a big vision. What's the big vision?
The big vision is quite simple. The big vision is connecting the world to the rich flavors of Persian cuisine. It's simple to understand. It's we all know Persian cuisine is rich. We have history, and with history comes there's always been food. As you can't say, oh, it like backdates to, as long as we know, humanity or whatever, we exist, biology existed, like people, animals, we had to eat. So as long as there were Persians, there were food, there were flavors. So there's a lot to dig into with Persian cuisine.
I mean, over the years in Vancouver, to your non-Iranian friends, how do you define Persian cuisine? Like if you were to give a short, in a sentence or two, describe Persian cuisine, how do you do it?
If I don't want to confuse people, I say kebabs.
But that's reductive, right? That's not, Persian cuisine's about so much more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like now, before I did that, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, I did that too. People are like, "Oh, what's Persian cuisine?" And I would be like, "Oh, have you had kebabs?" It's like, "Have you had kebabs? Have you had tadig? Or have you had?" So, but now that I'm doing a lot of research, now that I'm doing, seeing things on the internet, on different accounts, it's like, it's not kebabs. It's kebabs. It's like the logo maybe. And it's been because, you go to Persian restaurants, and you go to Persian restaurants because of kebabs, because that's making kebabs at home isn't as
hard to do
commonly. Yeah. But big part of our Persian cuisine, big part of our foods are stews, polos, stews, and we have a lot of complex dishes, a lot of so those are the ones that we're so used to. We're almost like spoiled. We get them all the time. There's always foresh. There's all. But in restaurants, unfortunately, we lack that. We lack, showcasing our flavors.
I mean, given that this is a relatively new endeavor for you, not the cooking part, but the sharing what you do with the world. When you say things like, I want to introduce our culture to the world and keep our rich culture alive, are those flowery words that one puts on a website, or is that something that's really important to you in this moment? And if so, why?
It's very important to me, and that's why I'm really taking my time doing so, because I do want to be knowledgeable. So for someone that hasn't lived in Iran for too many years, I lived in Iran for maybe 5-6 years max. I visited Iran multiple times, but I have recently come to a realization of, wow, like when you're outside of Iran, or like when you're not too focused on the culture part, like you're missing out. There's so much to tap into, like in terms of like culture, arts. And I feel like we can't let that fade away. Like that's has to be a focus. And I feel like food and coming together is where we can have these conversations. We can have stories. I tell a lot of my friends, I say, if you look at your life, we don't realize this. At the worst times of your life, when you're grieving or when you're happy, weddings, it's always like it's always around food.
It's true.
When your dad's telling you you're not doing great at school or whatever, it's usually at sham or like dinner, or if you're going khastegari, it's sham, or it's so food is a topic that not a lot of people hate. Like if you're hungry, you need to eat, and you'll come to words, like you'll start expressing, so. By
the way, as someone who grew up in the West, is there a particular food for khastegari, or is it just I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know either. So this by the way, I appreciate what you just said, and about a month ago we had Farzaneh Milani on the show, the professor and the great writer, and one of the things that she said that I think so many of us feel, but or can relate to in different ways. She said, "I had to leave Iran to find out I'm an Iranian," and it sounds like to a certain extent that's what you're experiencing as someone who is gaining this appreciation for your ancestral culture because you're not there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's as if like the saying of you don't know what you're missing until you're actually missing. Yeah, and I feel that, and it's funny because now at age like early 30s, I'm like, you know, I'm asking questions about like Hafiz, like about like a lot of like our poetry, arts, and then I get overwhelmed. I'm like, it's not just like a Google search. This is like thousands of years. It's like, yeah, it's quite a bit. It can become overwhelming, but it's beautiful. It's rich. It's like endless Disneyland of.
It's a lifetime of discovery if you go into it. So, the global pandemic has been. I mean, it's been an interesting disruptor for people of all stripes. I mean, in some ways, very clearly, it has changed lives for the worse. In some cases, people have lost their lives, but. It was this COVID situation that gave you space for you to create Piaz Miaz. Now, I'm going to get into your story over the last few years, but just to actually, the actual precipitant, what was the moment last year that you decided to start posting videos and pictures of your culinary creations?
During the pandemic, everyone was home. Everyone was scared to even get out. A bunch of my friends asked me, hey, you know, you're the guy that's always cooking, whatever, you know, why don't you do a live? We'll all come on and say hi. And I decided on my own personal account to do live kebab tabi for my friends, just for the fun of it. I mean, like people were like staying in, like drinking, doing whatever.
Right.
So I did that. It was fun. A lot of people joined. And after that, I think this was probably a month or so into the pandemic. And during this period, I had been cooking for myself. Normally I'd eat out or like I would cook in special occasions. So I was already like playing around with the ingredients. After that, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the live. I really enjoyed the energy. I don't think there was a moment, but after that, I started paying attention to ingredients, our cuisine. So I wasn't really focused on our cuisine prior to Piaz Miaz. It was more like, oh, I like to cook. I'll come up with stuff. My mandaravordی is my thing. Like I'll come up with stuff like burger, not a normal burger. Let's put stuff inside and like, yeah. So it was after that I started thinking, hey, I'm really enjoying this. Why don't I start introducing our food? You know, and our food is not, even though I did the live and I did kebab, obviously, I'm like, our food is not kebab.
I mean, now that it's a thing, Piaz Miaz, how do you decide what dish you're going to introduce next? And given that you do not have professional schooling around cuisine, what are the resources you use to make sure you're getting things right? Or is that important or not?
I don't think there's a right in cooking. Cooking is like art. There's, you know, my way of right or my way of like eating my khoresh beme is, it cannot be the same for 85 other million people. It's good to be mindful of what's out there, what's been, you know, what people have created in the past, look at that. But I think what's more important is to have that freedom to express, you know, your creativity. Are we all going to fight and say who does it right? At the end of the day...
Well, my mother definitely thinks there's a right way.
Yeah, and I get that. I get messages on a daily basis saying that, hey, like, you made this. That's not right. And I get it.
What's an example of that?
For instance, I made morasa polo.
I don't know if I know what that is. What's that?
Morasa polo is basically jeweled rice.
Okay.
When I was making it, actually, it's funny because it came from my mom. So I was making it for the first time. I'd never made it before. I was like, Mom, how do you make this? And like, it's interesting. I think I want to play around with it. So one of the ingredients is orange peel.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, you know, the right way is boil the orange peel, you know, have it, you know, boil a couple times, dry it, and just put it on rice. I was like, that's not fun. I'm going to make it my way. So basically my mindset is, how do you take something that's traditional, or how do you take something that's good and enhance it?
So what did you do with the orange peel?
I deep fried it.
Oh.
Yeah, I deep fried it. So I I peeled it, not traditionally, super long, like curly fries. I boiled them to get the bitterness out, and then I deep fried it. Prior, you get this dry orange peel, that I personally didn't like that much. Now you get this textured, curly sort of orange peel that has texture even on top of flavor.
Yeah.
My mom right away was like, no, you can't do that. I was like, I can. I might fail, but yeah.
Let me ask you about her and your family. You were born in Karaj in Iran in 1987, and you said that your mom and your family were the inspiration in terms of falling in love with Persian cuisine. What do you remember about being a kid and your mom's cooking? It's interesting to me, Masoud, because to me, most kids love their mom's cooking, but don't necessarily learn how to do it, especially when you're a little boy. Would you watch her techniques even back then?
No, I definitely didn't look at techniques. I appreciate the cooking process because I did see back in the day, when I experienced Iran at a time where you had to go at a certain time to like a grocery store to get sabzi, you had to go through the process of like cleaning it. And, there was like, I saw that and I was like, I appreciated that from like childhood, I think. I don't think technique. Like, I think I was just that chubby kid that was always eating. I was like, my parents were probably like, yeah, that's always like, Masoud, are you eating again?
Right.
Yeah.
So your dad is an entrepreneur, always wanted to seek opportunities for you and your siblings that you just talked about outside of Iran. And this leads to, we just talked about you being in Dubai. There's a very turbulent time for you and your family through the 1990s when your family is moving, trying to do this emigration out of Iran. And first you're in Dubai, then you're back in Iran, then you're in Turkey, and you end up in Syria right around the time of 9/11. Your dad has already come to Canada at that point, and you end up being stuck in Syria for a year and a half. What kind of an impact did that period have on you?
A lot, in different ways. I think at early age, when we were in Syria, I was probably 12 to 13, not knowing too much about the outside world, not knowing too much about the seriousness of life. You go through difficulties, and later on you realize that, I experienced things in my early years that now gives me a deeper understanding of life. Mm-hmm. When you experience it at an early age, then it kind of embeds in your mind to have perspective, to have different perspective on life, to think deeper, not be at like surface level. So it was difficult. Yeah, and in Syria, we spent about a year and a half. We were separated from my dad because my dad was already here prior to us. It was difficult. And 9/11 happened right as we were about to receive our immigration documents.
And you couldn't go to school in Syria, right?
We could. I don't want to say we couldn't. It was just we were so uncertain of what's happening, and like it was almost like that COVID happened, like the pandemic happened, and like no one knew, like, hey, are things gonna open up next week? Or like I don't think me and you, even now talking about it, knew that pandemic is gonna last this long.
Right.
It was kind of like that. 9/11, people were like, what's happening? Who are they?
Right.
We were being labeled. Persians were being labeled. Like everyone was pointing fingers, and like, so there was opportunity to go to school, but like we didn't know how long we were there. Like initially we planned to be there maybe a month or two. So
I ask these questions because they're so related to the experience of so many Iranians in the diaspora. At the end of the day, people are people, but we do tend to, you stop any Iranian, scratch beneath the surface and ask them about their life. And, we've experienced things that most folks, say living in Canada, haven't experienced. It's not the normal life for most people to be, for a kid to be in Dubai and Turkey and stuck in Syria and, wondering where their home is. And part and parcel of that as well is that you end up being away from your dad for about 3 years or 3.5 years. How did that affect you?
Not having that dad figure, not having that dad figure is obviously, I'm not saying he was fully absent, but like when growing up at that age, you do miss it. You realize that after you do miss it. But then at the same time, it makes you wonder, like at that age, you're asking why, like, why the hell are we doing this? Like, why are we going like to Canada? Where is Canada? I don't even know where Canada was. If you asked me back then, I would think it's next to, I don't know, Africa. Like,
did you want to go back to Iran?
I didn't know what I want. When you don't know what you want, you're constantly in this confusing state of, asking questions, but at the same time, you're like, I don't care, you think everything is okay, but then it's not okay because your dad's away, and you're constantly asking your mom, when is dad coming, or like, when are we going? And it's
also hard to make. I mean, this is pre-social media. It's hard to make friends when you're in a different country every couple of years, right?
100%. And in the countries where you feel like, as like you're passing through, you're not there to make friends. I mean, we did, luckily, I don't want to say I had bad experiences in any of those countries. It's foreign, but when you're there to pass through, we're there for a short period, when your mind is set on the idea of like, oh, we're just here to, get our documents, get our immigration stuff, and go see dad, go start our new life. And when that keeps getting extended, prolonged, then it does have psychological effects on, at that early age, you start realizing that life isn't all sunshine and rainbows.
Right. You do finally arrive in Vancouver in the early 2000s. Was the process of assimilating into life in Canada an easy one for you, or was that difficult for you? This immigrant kid post 9/11 lands in Vancouver. I don't even know how good your English was, or I mean, it's very good now, obviously. What was that experience like when you first came to North America?
Very difficult. It was difficult in many ways. We had not been schooling for about a year and a half. We come here. We hadn't seen our dad for three plus years. A brand new country. It's raining. It's raining like crazy. It's dark gray. And now we're told we have to go to this English school. We're like, I don't want to say my English was zero, but because in Dubai we had a little bit of exposure to like English, like TV, mostly TV, and like people outside spoke English, but like you're a kid. But we went to Farsi school in Dubai, Persian school. So now here we are in Vancouver trying to like really open our luggages and be like, this is it. This is the final destination. Like, it was difficult, like going to school, being the Persian guy. And I'm like, at that age of like 14, 15, you feel like you're cool, but you're not. And like, there's a lot of, internal battles that you're trying to figure out.
You talked earlier about being go, about being ambitious. That is borne out by the history of you in the last 15 years. I mean, there's been no shortage of jobs and businesses you've been involved in. You love sports. You were going to be a professional athlete at one point. You've been a referee for many years. You ran a UPS store. You worked at Safeway. You worked at TELUS and Shaw. You delivered newspapers. You tried starting companies. Did it occur to you in all of those years that, I mean, given that you are Piaz Miaz now, I'm just curious in all that time if it ever occurred to you that cooking and cuisine could be your path?
Honest answer, no. And now I know why. Because in our societies, I'm just going to talk about Persians. You're born expected to be a doctor, mohandes, and so you're told right off the bat, coming out of the hospital, that this is what you have to be. And I'm going to measure your success in life, whether or not you have those titles, jobs, or you have tangible things like cars, houses, whatever. So that's what I was chasing. I've always been chasing. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not chasing that now, but with a different purpose.
Like somehow being a chef or going into cuisine wouldn't be good enough, wouldn't be this kind
but it's even now it's not. It's like, unfortunately, it's not valued in
really though. Really, in a period where we're foodies and everybody loves. I feel like chefs have become stars now. I feel like that's even in the Persian community that's valued. Oh, but you would know better. I mean, the feedback you get.
I don't. Me. It's definitely coming out. I'm talking Persian community.
Yes.
I think as a society, as a culture, we need to really leverage our arts. We have to recognize that artists, chefs, musicians are the true definition of success, because when you are an artist or when you're doing something out of passion and love, then you're truly living life. But when you're chasing things, tangible things, future things, and you're blocking those springs of like creativity, then you're not really living life. You're chasing.
Yeah, I mean, you could be passionate about being a doctor and engineer. That is possible.
You could, but you and me both know there's
it's not always the case. Does it piss you off that you didn't start this? Or I mean, you're young. You're in your early 30s, but that do you ever think, wow, if I had become Piaz Miaz at the age of 19, by now I'd be 13 years into this or something,
No, sometimes I do, but no, because you have to know the opposite side to really appreciate so you have to know the dark to know the light. If I didn't go through the whole experience of my life, doing different things, going through different phases of mental well-being and like physical, and like doing things that I didn't necessarily want to do, but I was doing it because it would give me that title, right? Like owning a software company, being the CEO, or having the best car that I could afford. I think it's important for me to have had experienced those things to now realize that this is better.
Let me ask you about the dark as opposed to the light, because I agree with you. You don't know. I mean, you don't even know what happiness is if you haven't felt sadness. So that
yes.
That it's worth being able to experience all those things. You end up going through a really tough time a couple of years ago. Speaking of mental health, your company was failing. You were dealing with anxiety and depression. You were having trouble sleeping. You were 65 pounds overweight. Can you talk about what was going wrong in your life, if you feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah, there wasn't anything going wrong in my life. There was a lot of things going wrong internally. As human beings, we tend to externalize. We tend to turn into things as a reason for our, let's say, unhappiness. Or I realized, I think two and a half years ago, that it's not the external stuff. Has nothing to do with my company, has nothing to do with my partner, has nothing to do with my parents. It's me.
How did you realize that?
I think through going through phases where I just was not happy about life. And I was the person who would blame things. I do now too. I'm not saying I'm like this amazing robot that's like, I would blame things. If company didn't work, it's the employee's problem. If software doesn't work, it's it's like but that's the problem with when you get into that vicious circle of blaming. It's so easy. Negativity multiplies, and because it requires you not to do a lot of thinking. It requires all you need to do is judge. Yeah, and that's it. Like, hey, this interview isn't going well. It's Jian's fault for sure. Like, it's oh my god, like he didn't set it up right.
Well, that probably would be true, but if the interview wasn't going well, I would take ownership of that. But there are two events that happened in your life, it seems, that change your life when you get you back on track in a big way a couple of years ago. And one is a trip back to Iran. The other, the death of your dear uncle, which you mentioned earlier. And I want to ask you about both of them one at a time. So in the middle of that rough period of your life that you've just been talking about a couple of years ago, you suddenly and really spontaneously, from what I understand, pick up and go to Iran.
Yeah.
You text your dad from the airport and say, I'm going to Iran. what did you learn from that trip back to Iran for a couple of months?
So at that time, I was pretty low. Like nothing was making me really happy. Like I was blaming things, and trip to Iran was an escape from the reality of all my problems. So I thought if I run away from it, it can't catch up to me. I got a ticket to Iran. I joined my mom. My mom was traveling to Iran. I called my family from the airport and I said, I'm going to Iran. Yeah, it was interesting times. So, yeah.
Did you somehow find yourself when you were there?
I very soon realized that my problems also got a ticket to Iran.
Right. There's nowhere you can fly to get away from them. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, and Iran was amazing. Iran made me slowly start realizing that the problems are all internal. And over time, from my time in Iran and traveling through different parts of Iran and spending some time with my best friend, my family, I did realize that, hey, this is like, I need to work on me. Like that's my mission. That's my goal. Like when I'm back, like I'm not working on stuff. I'm working on me. And at that time I was 65 pounds overweight, but worse than my 65 pounds. I was probably 150 pounds overweight mentally because I was having anxiety attacks. I was having,
You come back.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of COVID, you lose your dear uncle to COVID. He was only 55 years old.
Yeah.
Tell me about the impact that had on you.
I was already on my journey of like self-discovery. I was doing a lot of things. I was meditating. I was, exercising. I was taking time for myself. When that happened, it really, really nailed the coffin. Like that really put me in a state where I went a step further. I thought about life in a different perspective. I put myself in my uncle's shoes. Like I thought, hey, you know what? We're going so fast about life. What happened to my uncle, or what happened even now, like people are dying. It could happen to me. It could happen to anyone. If that were to happen to me tomorrow, okay, and I'm on my deathbed, okay, how would I feel about my life? And that like sent shockwaves through my entire body. Because if that was last year, because like I was like, if it happens tomorrow, I would laugh at my life. Because all I've been doing is chasing future, chasing for the future, living in the past. Forgetting about the present.
I mean, it's a big lesson. The thing is that, and I say this as someone who completely relates to the idea of go and the ambitions and the maybe the culturally imposed notion of you got to be successful in these certain areas. You got to do this. You got to make money. You got to, and the anxiety. It's a matter of how you can reprogram yourself or rehabilitate yourself. So if so much of your difficulties have been related to the anxiety of needing to get ahead and find material success, the obvious question to me is, how will you avoid falling back into that pattern with Piaz Miaz? I mean, you are finding success. There's a video of you from 3 months ago going, we just hit 10,000, followers on Piaz Miaz. Now 20,000 is the next goal. You've already hit 20,000. I see the ambitious guy, as much as it's also a beautiful project and it's something that feels wholesome and it feels right for you and it's bringing you so much. How do you avoid falling back into that pattern?
You need constant reminders. You need to. So if I look at it this way, if you want to change your mindset, if you want to be mindful of your life, you need to you can't be in a diet. You have to live in an environment where you're constantly reminded that the true value of life is the present moment, and the true value of life is your health, your well-being. And how you do that, I mean, for me, it's meditation. Every morning I meditate. I take the time to go exercise. I spend time in nature, things that you can't buy with money.
So wait a second. So you get up in the morning, and how soon do you meditate after you get up?
Pretty much immediately.
So you don't check your phone or your text messages or surf the internet or any of that stuff?
Sometimes I do, but I don't get into anything serious. I try to meditate first. I meditate, grab a coffee, and then
How long do you meditate for?
Usually about half an hour, sometimes.
Wow.
20 minutes, sometimes. Yeah.
Meaning, I'm sorry, but what form of meditation is that? Are you sitting there?
I do guided meditation.
Okay.
Yeah, guided meditation where like different days, depending on how I feel, I'll do gratitude. One day I'll do envisioning goals, one day just like appreciation of life, appreciation of me. Attracting the right energies, and
And you do intermittent fasting, right?
Yes.
Has that been helpful? I mean, does that change? That's a lifestyle change?
It's a full lifestyle change.
How so? I mean, obviously, I know that it works to lose weight or something, but how is it a lifestyle change?
Initially, obviously, I was looking at it. I was like 65 pounds overweight. I need to figure out something. I wanted to do diets, but after doing a little bit of research, over time I've done research. Over time I've done like different soup diets and whatever. It worked, but because I'm going through a phase of now a lifestyle change, I'm looking at planning my life. Like it can't be a diet, because if I lose 20, 30, 40 pounds, 50 pounds and have to regain it, this doesn't work. So I started being exposed to the science of longevity, like, prolonging your life, being able to live longer. And I came across intermittent fasting. The science behind intermittent fasting is very interesting. What it does to your body, how it allows your body to really cycle through the waste that sits in your digestive tract, and how it maximizes the energy. It maximizes the output on basically the material that's the ingredients that are inside your digestive tract, because now you're not starving, but like you're allowing your body a 16-hour break to do so.
Right. This is the thing, just to clarify for anybody listening who doesn't know exactly what it means. This is the thing where you eat with impunity. You eat as much as you want for 8 hours, and then at the end of that 8 hours, you wait 16 hours again in your cycle until you can eat again, right? You can just drink water or something, but nothing else?
Yeah, drink water, coffee with no additives, like just black coffee or black tea or green tea. But here's the cool thing. So a lot of people say you have there's a 16-hour window where you don't eat. You try to drink as much water as possible because now your body needs more water. But that 8-hour window, initially when I started, I was like, 8 hours, I can eat a ton. You start falling into this mindset of appreciating your body. So even that 8-hour period, it's like now you're trying to create this well-oiled machine to take you to a long distance, to take you to hopefully 110 years old, and you don't want to feed it shit. Right. Window of 8 hours, you're like, I want to eat good, because as soon as you start eating bad, I don't know, for me, I feel, I'm not saying I don't have cheat days or whatever, but somewhat you feel guilty because you're like, now I've done all this work, now it's been almost 2 years now that I've been doing this, and I try to eat healthier. Can
I ask you, do you think that, because I always hear different things, about this. Do you think that Persian cuisine can be healthy? I remember when I started, I'm no Piaz Miaz, but I cook Persian food. And when I started making things like khorshte badem jun. It was really depressing because I always thought, oh, khorshte badem jun is kind of healthy. It's just eggplant, and then you realize the amount of oil that it takes to sorg the eggplant to make it, is not healthy. It's not that healthy. And I mean, people will say, oh, chela kebab, it's just kebab. Kebab is good for you. It's some meat, But where do you stand on whether our cuisine is something that we can consume and be healthy at the same time as?
So here's the thing. I don't think there's one size fits all, because what's healthy for me might not be healthy for you. I know people that run on like 90% protein diet and they're very healthy. And I know people that are vegan diet and they're still struggling. So everybody's different. You got to know your own body. To answer the question about Persian cuisine, I think Persian cuisine can be healthy. It is healthy. We have a lot of fresh ingredients. If we start respecting the ingredients and being open to maybe prepping them different ways, it can even be healthier. Like khoresh badem jun, there are other ways to do it. And I'm exploring.
Masoud, the world of being a chef it's obviously competitive. I mean, I remember interviewing Gordon Ramsay at one point, and he wasn't shy by the fact that he doesn't get along with, doesn't like Jamie Oliver. At that time they were competing against each other. Have you experienced other chefs out there kind of looking over the shoulder at you as you've quickly emerged here and kind of going, who's the new kid? What settle down. How come you've got so many followers? Or do you feel that energy at all, or has it been generally positive in the community?
The community is good. I think there needs to be more togetherness. No, I've been fortunate to be I've been supported a lot by the community. I can't say 100%, there's definitely been, but I think that's normal. That's, there's never going to be, you can't jive with everyone. You can't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Were you surprised when you launched Piaz Miaz that it took off so quickly, or did you have a sense that you were onto something?
Very surprised, because knowing my past life, my past me, I want success fast. I wanted, but this is very interesting. Going into this, I didn't want anything tangible fast, but it came to me. But I think it's a byproduct of something that you're passionate about. Things just happen, supports come, ideas come, cool things happen, like I'm having an interview. I'm like no one, I'm having a cool interview talking about like my life, and this is great.
Well, you've already said if the interview is shit, it's my fault. So you don't have anything to worry about. Who is your audience? What have you learned about who your audience is?
My audience is majority females. Mainly now I have a big audience from North America, obviously, Canada, California, United States, Iran, Tehran is big, parts of Europe. And I think they're mostly young professionals that kind of relate, because they've been exposed to other cuisines, they might be outside of Iran. They're exposed to like Mexican cuisine, or they're exposed to like, they go to restaurants and, pay for expensive dinners or pay for experiences, but none of those, most of the time, none of those are Persian. And now for them, it's intriguing that, I am maybe plating things differently or doing it my own way, or like I'm thinking outside of the box.
What's the most interesting feedback you get from people in Iran?
Feedback is, it's usually good. It's usually people are like, we're proud of you. It's amazing. Do what you're doing. I do get criticized for not doing it in Farsi.
What? You could do a version in Farsi. You're obviously fluent. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of reasoning why I don't want to focus too much on Farsi, is because my big vision is to connect the world, and Iran is part of that world. But a lot of us know Farsi. A lot of us know about war misabzis or whatever. I don't need to teach you or teach your mom or teach you. 100%, but I want to teach. Like I don't want to say I want to teach. I want to expose non-Persians. Like my goal is within the next 5, 6 to 10 years that Persian cuisine becomes the new, let's say, Mexican cuisine or Japanese cuisine, where everyone's talking about sushi and
I've been waiting for that. Why not? Why not? Like Thai food and sushi, everything's had their moment, you know, and it only makes sense that Persian food, it's you know, we can have that moment. And
it's past due. It's past due.
I was going to ask you what your ultimate dream is, but you just said it. I appreciate that. Listen, I really appreciate the time, and I know that some of the things you've said in this interview I haven't seen you say elsewhere yet. I do appreciate your candor for being Roqe. You know, if we talk about this as obviously it's an ongoing evolution, people's lives. It's not all going to be up from here. You're going to have ups and downs. But if this has been a heartwarming or inspirational story of someone who was really down not that long ago and has really found your footing in a really positive way, what is your best advice to people hitting a low point and going through the toughest time of their life?
It's okay to go through those times. It's completely okay to go through those times. It's we can't panic, you know. When we hit low times, low points in our life, we tend to panic. We tend to like, it's the end, that it's not okay to be low. If once you start being okay with yourself, being okay with the state of whatever that state is, for everyone's different, then you start listening to yourself. You know, you stop blaming things. You stop blaming even yourself. You just need to take time and like listen to yourself, shut everything down. And honestly, like you don't need people's advice, you know. All you need to do is listen to yourself. Start reasoning.
Masoud, Piaz Miaz, I thank you very much for this today.
I thank you. Thank you for whoever's listening. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you for listening to my story. And I hope we can have more of this.
Well, take care of yourself, brother. And post-COVID, I've already signed you up for making food for the Roqe team, and we're gonna get you to Toronto. Put you in a kitchen, and there's no shortage of Shekamus on this team that are looking forward to tasting your delights.
I would love that. You don't have to ask me twice.
Thank you, brother. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Masoud Moussaei, a.k.a. Piaz Miaz, is a chef, a creator, a social media sensation based in Vancouver. He can be found at piazmiaz.com. Masoud joined us from Vancouver, Canada today. And this is Full Time for Roqe. Shaya June.
Yes.
Our website, roqemedia.com. As I said earlier in the show, we invite you to become a patron of Roqe and help keep this project going at roqemedia.com. Just press the support us button for $5 a month or $10 a month. You can be a patron. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together each week. Producer Susan Ponta, the artist Thoughtful Nagin, the fabulous Kyan, Savvy Roham, Ahay Mehrdad, Master Muhammad, Captain Reza and Groovy Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there supporting us and sharing our content and subscribing. You can subscribe to Roqe on any of our platforms. If you've not done so already, please do. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Gomeshi. See you on Clubhouse tomorrow night. Mizun Bashi.